Now, in terms of the number of people, what happened? And this is in millions now on the y-axis. Again, we see a huge reduction, so that by today, we are around 1 billion, less than one, yeah, around 1 billion people
ये जो सामने
globally
ब्लैक वाला
that
कैमरा पड़ा
have
है,
experienced
ये पैनल की तरफ है या
stroke.
उनकी तरफ है?
Again, you
ब्लैक वाला
see
जो कैमरा है, ये पैनल
here,
की तरफ है या ये डेस्क की तरफ है?
it's been
हाँ,
the last 10 years. Um,
जूम लेवल यस भाई।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर, आपको आवाज आ रही है? डॉक्टर रिजवान,
जी जी
Dr. Rizwan, can you hear us?
जी आवाज़ आ रही
सर सर 15 से 20 मिनट में हम इंशाल्लाह फिर शुरू करते हैं सेशन। ओके,
चलें ठीक
जी सर ठीक है,
जी जी ठीक
जी ठीक हो गया सर, थैंक यू।
उनको कर सकते हैं, open कर सकते हैं। स्टार्ट होगा ना उसके बाद फिर हो जाएगा उनका कैमरा ऑन होता है।
Students, back in the auditorium, please. Parisha, snatch time.
डिफॉल्ट बैकग्राउंड
लगा दो।
डिफॉल्ट बैकग्राउंड लग जाएगा जब इनकी स्टार्ट होगी। मैम 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 यूसुफ पहले रिजवान ने डॉक्टर रिजवान ने उनकी कंप्लीट उन्होंने करके चले जाना है। मतलब उन्होंने बाद में तो बात नहीं करनी ना।
लगा दो। हाँ
रिजवान उसके बाद जब वो चले जाए उनकी बात खत्म हो जाए फिर हमने
एक मिनट रिकॉर्ड के बाद चैनल का अपना बैकग्राउंड क्योंकि जब ये अनाउंसमेंट करेंगे दुकान साहब आ जाए उसके बाद दुकान साहब का लिंक आ जाएगा स्क्रीन पे।
हाँ
और
अनाउंसमेंट करने के बाद
हाँ वो आ गया पैनल का लिंक पैनल का बैकग्राउंड।
अच्छा आप लोगों ने सिर्फ बात करनी है ये चीज हम करें आप लोग बता बात करेंगे तो एक बंदा यहाँ पे बैठा होगा वो आपकी चेयर आप दोनों की आपकी चेयर ठीक है।
हाँ पैनल का अपना बैकग्राउंड है कहाँ है
पैनल का अपना है ना
डन।
जब रिजवान साहब खत्म हो जाएंगे तो इस पे शिफ्ट होगा।
दुकान साहब खत्म होने से भी पहले एक दफा
खाने पीने में शुरू मस्त ये कि फिर बंदा शिप अटैक पैनिक ऊपर है ये कार्ड से
इतने बंदे थे नहीं ऐसे
which binds together distinguished scholars from the recognized institutions and leading development
बात तो करूँ
एक मेरा भी रख दो यार उधर रख दो ये उधर रख दो ये सेंटर टेबल में रख दो तुम अच्छी नहीं है यार बैठ जाए अब सब हॉल पूरा खाली है इस टाइम पे। मैम बाहर चले जाए स्टूडेंट्स हॉल पूरा खाली है। नेक्स्ट रैंक रिजवान में हक है
बड़ी शील्ड वो तो ऑनलाइन है
ऑनलाइन है। अच्छा फिर नुमान का नहीं है बता दूंगी मैं। हाँ
इधर रखनी है
Settle down, everyone. Please be seated. We are about to start. पद्मा ऊपर आओ पद्मा आज हो मान की जो जी Can I make a small announcement, Marisha? Sure, ma'am. This is particularly for EDS 25. First of all, your behavior is going to be monitored. Anyone seen leaving the conference hall, coming back in, leaving, coming back in, will not be tolerated. Second of all, you'll all be asked to write a summary of this session, particularly because this is your class timings as well. So please pay attention. Ladies and gentlemen, we now transition into panel 1, which brings together distinguished scholars from globally recognized institutions and leading development organizations. First up, we have Dr. Rizwanul Haq. Dr. Rizwanul Haq is affiliated with the Department of International Development at the University of Oxford, consistently ranked among the top global institutions in development studies. His research engages with poverty dynamics, inequality measurement, labor markets, and social policy in developing economies. His work contributes to international debates on human development and welfare systems. Second up, we have Mr. Numan Ghani, representing UNICEF, the United Nations agency dedicated to child welfare and human development. Mr. Ghani works in social policy and child protection programming. His professional engagement centers on strengthening institutional responses to vulnerability, social safety nets, and child-focused development interventions in Pakistan. Now, the moderator for this session will be Ms. Maliha Sattar, who is a teaching fellow at ITU, a development practitioner with experience in research, monitoring, and evaluation across public policy and social sector programs. Ma'am, I request you to kindly take the stage and moderate this session. Thank you. Thank you so much. Extremely grateful to all of you for joining us today. And we begin the formal panel with this. We're going to talk about poverty, inequality, and human development. Thank you for the generous introduction. And as we begin, I think we will have first go to Dr. Rizwan because he has to leave earlier. We'll begin with his presentation where he's going to talk about this multidimensional child poverty in Pakistan. Dr. Rizwan, are we audible to you?
Assalamualaikum ji. Yeah, I can hear you.
Gee, great, thank you. So we'll begin with your presentation. I understand that you're pressed for time.
Yeah, a bit
Yeah,
constrained.
great. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me to be part of this conference. The recent Punjab's mixed launch provides an important context to my presentation, where the results are based on the 2017 mix, the previous one, and focuses on the child poverty. I think you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So before that, I would like to assume a couple of things and would like to focus on some others. Firstly, I assume that multidimensional poverty is a familiar concept in a way that people might have heard about it. And I don't want to focus on the methodology and how it is computed, given that I assume that Chris might have touched upon some of the issues in MPI. However, I would like to emphasize that MPI focuses on the multiple deprivations experienced by the people at the same time. Normally, the unit of identification is at the household level, and the unit of analysis is at the individual level. And then the connection with the monetary poverty, it is never being claimed that it substitutes it, rather it complements it. And it provides a better understanding for targeting the people who are poor. On that note, I'll start my presentation. And as I said earlier, I mentioned that it was based on the previous mix, so a bit old data. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
So just to start with the children's experience of poverty in a different way than other population groups, especially adults. And so whenever we want to measure child poverty, that should focus on the distinct ways in which the children actually experience different deprivations in their childhood and adolescence. So there we have four options how to compute the children's poverty. One is if we have a national MPI, like for example, we have in Pakistan, and we have a particular questions on children. Then the other thing is that we might focus on the children by disaggregating the national MPIs, just that particular group, whichever is 0 to 4 or less than 18. Then we have gender and intra-household inequality. And then the final one is individual child, which is linked to the national MPIs. I'm sorry about that. These are huge concepts, but just to give you a brief intro into that. So we have, I'll be focusing on the data which was used in 2017 by MIX. And then we have the national MPI for Pakistan. And the national MPI was based on the PSLM survey. It wasn't based on MIX. So first of all, we tried to proxy the national MPI using mixed data. And for that, we have some missing indicators. So we proxied it. Then we disaggregated the national MPI results by children. And finally, we computed a child MPI, which is linked to the national MPI. And this paper is a bit old, and it used the first national MPI. So the research questions are, do the proxy MPI, the child disaggregated MPIs, and the linked MPIs converge in Punjab? And how well the proxy MPI depict the district level poverty, which emerged from the national data sets. So these are the composition of the national MPI. And here, some of the indicators are missing, like, for example, school quality and access to health facilities. So we readjusted the weights within that particular dimension. I won't go into details. And these are the results, and we can see that at the division at that time, these are the classification of the divisions in Pakistan, and we can see that the DG Khan is the poorest division in Punjab. And if you look at the district results, Rajanpur is the poorest and Gujarat is the least poor. And deprivations, if you look at water, electricity, antenatal care, these are the deprivations which are highest. And this is composition And if we look disaggregate the poverty by children, so we can see that 29.5% of the children are poor, whereas among the adults it's 19.2%, and for elderly it's 20%. And censored headcount ratios, these are the people who are poor and deprived in each indicator. We can see that children have significant higher deprivation in every indicator. So there are certain priority areas for children in Pakistan: child school attendance, early child education and development, nutrition, child mortality immunization, and in prenatal care, child labor, and child protection. So that's why for the linked child, we introduced some child age-specific indicators. For example, we introduced nutritional status for those who are below 5 years of education, 5 years of age, for children 5 to 11, and then for children 12 to 14, we have child labor, which is very specific to the different age brackets. For example, for 5 to 11, 12 to 14, and 15 to 17, based on the UNICEF's classification of child labor. Exclusive breastfeeding, this is another indicator, which is cognitive development. That is exclusive breastfeeding for less than 6 months, birth registration for 6 to 23, safety and stimulation for 2 years of age children. Preschool is for 36 to 59 years of age kids. School and preschool attendance is for 5 to 14, and NEET is not in education and training, plus marriage is for 15 to 17. So this is the last one, which is linked child MPI. And here the results are 23.6% are poor. And previously we knew that 29.5% were poor if we disaggregated the national MPI by children. So the two child indicators do not show highest level of deprivation that we can see here. 43% in cognitive development, 56% is in cooking fuel, which is quite a lot, and it's not the child particular indicator. And if we look at the boys and girls, there is no significantly different results in age. This is the redundancy test. I won't go into the detail. And these are the results for all 3 measures among the districts. And we can see that the proxy MPI is the highest, and child disaggregated MPI and the child MPI, they normally overlap. We also have the district rankings, and it is suggested that almost the same story is shown by the rankings. So finally, I conclude, because there's quite a bit of discussion points on that despite the fact that the results confirm the district level rankings, but we can see that provincial level of all 3 measures, there is a stark difference. So using all 3 gives us a precise picture, and there are some missing links which are being filled in by the other measures. While the individual child MP identifies a deeper and more refined deprivation profile at the individual level, the district and division rankings are essentially convergent. So when data are scarce, the national MPIs, which are proxied, and its child disaggregation can be used to identify priority area. Having said that, so we have now the new fresh mixed data, which is the main findings are released, and hopefully the data will be with us. So the analysis may be updated and extended to all areas of Pakistan to validate or invalidate the trends. And because for one of the biggest issues in Pakistan, given the poverty, especially for using mixed data, that for different provinces, we have the availability of data not at one point of time. And it normally hampers to have a national estimates for Pakistan using mix. So this is one point where we have to think about it, how to cover that particular issue. And mix is a rich data, like for example, for DHS is at provincial level, mix provides us the results at least at district level. And further, based on the results, in-depth action research may be initiated, focusing on the areas hit by the severe poverty. Because if we look at the national MPIs or any district level analysis in Pakistan on human development or poverty, we knew that certain areas are pinpointed in each and every analysis. If we look at in Pakistan, these are Balochistan, some areas of KP and Sindh, and south of Punjab. And same trends are being shown in this presentation. So further, we need to have an in-depth action research to find out the reasons why certain areas are. Most of the reasons are very obvious, but we need to focus on them to have an action research so that to eradicate poverty by targeting those who are really poor in terms of the regions and the people as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rizwan. And I believe that you also have to leave very early. So if there are any questions related to the presentation that you gave, I would request anyone who has any questions. Maybe I think I can begin with this. As you also pointed out, this tells us that, there is coupling of the deviations when we are measuring this data, right? And since we've been working with this data, and it shows that there are certain areas where there is concentration of poverty. And mostly this is in South Punjab and Balochistan, where the HDI ranking also shows similar sort of trends, right? What do you think? How open, availability of data can also sort of, create much needed noise where this data is being used, as we have also mentioned, for action-oriented plans?
Yeah, if I could hear you well, I mean, in Pakistan is a rich country in terms of data availability. We have tons of data. We have DHS, we have mix, we have PDHs, LFS surveys are also there. So in terms of availability of data, we don't have any constraints. Now, how to, and these are mostly at the provincial level or district level. So now the point is that the districts are quite large in Pakistan as well. It's not the case that we have very smaller areas. These are huge areas. So when we say that a particular district is poor, so we are just simply talking about perhaps a couple of million people or more than that. So how do we need to further pinpoint what are the reasons? So that's why I was focusing on the action research or have an in-depth analysis. For example, just to give you example from Thar, that we knew that there are certain issues which are related to Thar. That's why we have health issues in that particular district. So for other districts, for south of Punjab or for certain areas of KP and Sindh, so we need to find out why certain chunks of the areas are really poor. And for that, we don't have data for that. That is very pinpointed on those particular areas. We have to this is a whole new research design where we really lack, and perhaps we need to have some initiatives on that, focusing on certain areas which are really poor.
Great.
I hope I've answered.
And with this now, I want to Dr. Nasser. I believe that SITE has also collected some recent data around poverty and its incidence in Pakistan. Maybe you can shed a bit light on that. What does this data tell us about? What do we know about the nature of poverty that's being experienced in Pakistan?
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about poverty, inequality. So any idea about what is poverty? Just the student area and how they believe what is poverty? Just start imagining. Then the debate would be a more meaningful because this panel is all about creating ideas, creating discussion. What is meant by a poverty? So it means there are different definitions, like someone said the basic needs is an important component, someone said that the money would be a key part of this poverty. You just have a presentation by an expert on child poverty. It means it's linked with the multi-dimensional nature of everything. To me, like if we are starting point poverty, then we relate with the number that I will share in the next panel as well. So the poverty is lack of opportunities. I have the opportunity, you don't have. This is a kind of a narrative that we use to define poverty. And what about the number that we have and how they explain the nature of the poverty and what kind of solution we are looking for? So as Dr. Mulia said, I have done a lot of work on poverty issues. We do have a long history of intergenerational poverty data set that explain how the different household changes economic structure, social structure, and human capital to come out of poverty. And again, there are a recent data set by the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics. They just released about what they call highs to calculate the poverty. Now, if we look into the magnitude of the poverty, let's be specific on what is the magnitude of poverty right now. Right now, its figure is around 28%. I'll explain in the next panel about the tail of these things, but currently the highest is predicted is 28%. And what was its number before crisis? The last number was based on the highest 2019, it was around 21. This implies that around 6-point increase in poverty in last 5 to 6 years. So the question to all of us, what happened in last 6 years that changed the trend of the poverty? Because if we go back on the last 2 decades, poverty has declined from more than 60% to roughly 20%, and we were assuming that in next 1 decade we will be able to reduce poverty to a single digit. But what happened in the last 5 years that poverty has substantially increased from 21% to 28%. Another a shocking evidence that is the change in the inequality. Earlier, whenever we have a high growth, we are all student economics, whenever we have high growth, it will substantiate the inequality within the system. It means that a rich segment of the society get more benefit from the growth as compared to the lower segment of the society. But during the recession period, when there is a consumption side of the economy and there is no high growth, probably there is a equal opportunities for all of us, there is a lesser inequality. But this time, the trend has changed. As we all know, in the last 5 years, we have the Great Depression in our economy. Growth rate was roughly around 3%, below 3%. That hardly made the requirement of the population growth because we are growing around 2.5, 2.6, and if we have actual growth, it's around 3% population growth. It means there is no net development. During this period, there is a sharp increase in inequality. It means if there is any growth in the society, like 3%, it actually benefiting a few part of the country rather than the entire society. So this raises another question: what kind of economic system we have that has a two implication? One, the poverty is increasing. As I said, it increased from 21 to 28%. And the inequality has also increased. Another important finding that what we did analysis based on the recent highest data is substantial increase in inequality in the urban part of the society. That is again a question for us. What happened in the urban area? Because the poverty normally is relatively low in urban areas. I will show those slides in the next session that you can see that the poverty is around 17% in urban area as compared to the rural area where the poverty is around 35%. What happened? Why there is a massive inequality in the urban areas of the country? It means the urban structure, the way that the economic policies are running this urban part of the country is not an inclusive. It will give a benefit to the future society. Look at the infrastructure development of the country. Especially you are all living in the Lahore. Look at the infrastructure development within the Lahore. Is it an inclusive infrastructure? If it is an inclusive, it definitely meant to reduce the inequality. But if it is a promoting inequality within the urban area, it means that the current policies adopted by the sitting government or whatever it is not an inclusive. So being a researcher, we have to come up with a kind of a question. But what is going wrong with the economic policies of the country? What happened? What we learn from the global shock? What we learn from the natural shock that we have in the last 5 years? What we learn from the domestic recession within the economy? As I said, the growth remained below 3%. It hardly made the consumption and the population growth. The inflation was around more than 30% in the last 2 years. That substantially reduces the real purchasing power of the household. There was a massive flood in 22. There was a COVID. So all these combine into a substantial increase in poverty over the last 5 years. What could be the response? What kind of response we are imagining from the state and from the society? This is a debatable question, and this panel basically is all about talking about the nature of this poverty, inequality, and how that translated into the human development part of the poverty. As you noted in the last presentation, they highlighted that the child poverty is very high in the few part of the province compared to the other part of the province. Why this is happening? The solution that we believe as economists is the idea of an opportunity. What kind of opportunities we are giving to you people? Because if you graduated after 4 years from this university, what kind of opportunities are available to you in the market? Do we have that market economy where you can work easily? So here there is a need of a kind of rethinking about the economic structure that led to an opportunity that ultimately if you have that kind of opportunity that translated into the human capital development. If you witness the mixed data, highest data, the global reports, we are far below in terms of the human capital. How you define that human capital, your health, your education, your living standard. This is all become the part of your human capital index. Where is the quality of education? Where is the health quality? If you look into the South Punjab, they don't have even access to clean water. So these are all translated into a deep poverty, and we can call it a vulnerable society. And if you define the vulnerability, around 40% of the population is vulnerable. If we exclude the poverty, the extreme poverty, the ultra poverty, around 40% population is close to a vulnerable condition. Any further shock would suppress their income opportunities, would suppress their human capital, and that ultimately lead to a more poverty. So this reversal is not about the economic opportunity. This reversal is about the deep structural issues that we have in the society. So if we really looking to address this poverty, if we really looking to reduce the inequality within the system, we have to come up with the inclusive economic policies that primarily linked with the creating an opportunity for entire society, not for the one segment of the society. So here I propose a few ideas at the part that we can debate in the next panel, but I'll stop here and we can take questions on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And there is an important reminder that I want to give to students that at the moment we're talking about the metric-based, measurements of poverty. We're not taking it into account the qualitative measures that are already around, right? So we'll talk about it. Probably the keynote tomorrow will begin with that. The qualitative nature of the poverty that's being experienced, especially in context of Pakistan. But for now, I'll now move to Numan Farisa. You have been working with UNICEF, and there's explosive data that you have. I remember you shared the data around the other school children and how that has changed, right? And there's some other data that you have been working with. What do we understand about the nature of poverty? Rizwanul Haq, he was also talking about the multidimensional nature of poverty that's being experienced by children in Pakistan, right? So what's your perspective? And as Dr. Nasser also pointed out, the rural and urban division and within region inequalities. What do you have to say about the nature of the poverty that's being experienced in Pakistan?
Thank you very much. This is Noman Larin, Social Policy Planning Monitoring Specialist, UNICEF Pakistan, based in Lahore. Regarding your particular question, I will start from 2015 when we have this multidimensional poverty, first time estimation at national level. And those estimates helped a lot to the provincial and federal governments for focusing their development programs based on these estimates. And I hope you are aware, social sector in Pakistan has been revolved in 2011 and onwards. This poverty principally is a subject of a provinces. They have from their own annual development program, they are supposed to have these poverty focused programs at the province levels. This is one thing. Punjab province, since I'm working for the Punjab province has an added advantage in the sense that we have this multidimensional poverty index 2015, and beyond that, in last 10 years, around 2026, we have this five multidimensional poverty estimates. This is one area, and the second thing, Punjab has the advantage that we have outcome-based, regular outcome-based surveys in Pakistan, in Punjab province, consecutive 3 outcome-based surveys starting from 2014-15 to 2018-19, and we have current results of these outcome surveys, which tells us about the story of poverty and human development in Punjab in particular. Now the question is, you know that we have been supporting or implementing poverty alleviation programs at the federal level under this social protection and social policy division. The biggest, largest program is the income support. So I will start from there. Where is the income support program? You know that I will compare resources, how much we are resourced, because this is the biggest poverty alleviation program, and you know this fiscal year, Government of Pakistan has allocated 720 billion rupees for the PSDP, Public Sector Development Program, and along with side, the allocation for the income support program is also 720 billion rupees. So it means that poverty alleviation program and a PSDB national program, both they are getting the same funds. And Punjab has advantage that Punjab has covered this annual development program. Here our allocations are much more in this sense. But the biggest challenge we are facing here in Punjab province for poverty alleviation programs that are development focus is output. The major investments are going towards the output, having more health, basic health units, more this hospitals, more these schools, primary schools, secondary schools, and all that. The biggest challenge we are facing being policymaker and what we are advocating to the provincial government that we have to shift from we need to transfer from an output focus to the outcome focus. So this is one thing we are trying to convince the provincial government that instead of focusing on outputs, we need to focus on outcome. So we are talking globally outcome driven planning, programming, and policy making. If we will have this output driven planning, programming, and policy making, we will be able to handle this question of this poverty. Another thing regarding your question, but few more things to like provincial governments, they are, as I said, that they are focusing poverty alleviation program, supply side. We are supply driven. We are talking about only investments, investments, and investment. We are not talking about the demand side. Demand side means local communities. There is not at all any engagement of the local communities in those developing poverty alleviation programs. Another area would like to highlight here. In last 80 years, we have been talking about single sector focus approach, integrated approach, and now with the South Asian countries, they are investing into convergence. They are talking about convergence. When I say single sector approach, health investments are going into health. Integrated approach means all social sectors, they are moving ahead in an integrated manner. There is a change among the international donors. Now in the 5 years, I can talk about 5 programs government of Punjab has taken based on the from the Asian Development Bank, the World Bank, and the IFAD. In these 5 programs, World Bank sponsored, Asian Development Bank sponsored, and one is IFAD, International Fund for this Food International Fund for Agriculture Development. So they have initiated these integrated programs. As I said, what's the problem? Government sector approach is purely single sector focus. The government administration, which is governing all these programs, they are using this single sector focus approach. And we are moving from a single sector to integrated approach. And the best solution of this poverty alleviation program is that we need to enter into programmatic convergence. When I say programmatic convergence, means that in all social sector, that wash in health, health in education, nutrition in education, education in health. So multiple sectors should be working with each other. So based on this, there is an approach globally. The countries, those have followed this approach. The name of that approach is success approach. And even in the South Asian countries, I can quote examples of Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, they have followed this success approach is scaling up convergence and coverage of social sector, essential social sector. So success approach is the right approach, is the best approach, and we are trying our best to convince the provincial government that majority of the programs, because we need to shift the single sector focus programming to be integrated towards the scaling up convergence. So I hope I have answered your question. Still would like to say something, but please continue. Thank you.
Great. I'm glad that you pointed out that, and we also see from the data and the keynote earlier by Christian, who was also pointing this out, that there is coupling of abbreviations, right, which keeps appearing in this data of mix and also, the parity estimations the government is doing, right? But the programs or the way we're trying to alleviate parity is not taking that into account or the multidimensional nature of the programs that need to take place, right? But having said this, this also points out, I recall that there has been a lot of controversy around the number of the poor or the incidence of poverty that's prevalent in Pakistan. So every time data comes up, recently World Bank came up with some data where they give a number and then some people are contesting it that the incidence of poverty is somewhere around 40%, right? And the government, it keeps, sort of also reminding us there's a paradox where, and I remember our friend Dr. Arif Naveed highlighted this once that this paradox is so interesting where the government also needs to show that there is decline in poverty, but through the donors, they also need to, highlight how the incidence of poverty is so high. And unless we do something about it, and now with this increased climate change and all these issues coming up, we also see that time and again, government is asking for more concession on loans and, all that. So, Dr. Nasser, since you've been working very closely with Planning Commission, which is like also, guarding the data or also gatekeeping the data, and also telling us that this is the way to look at the data, right? What do you think? There is a recognition in the government about, bringing in the qualitative aspects of the poverty measurement into account, or are we only going to stick the numbers that we are currently looking at?
The government approach is all about the quantitative approach. They believe on numbers like you mentioned that the and 20 billion at the same like PISP level more than 700. And I think these are all numbers that matter for the government. And yes, the planning commission have a kind of understanding that the current social protection is not working. That's what I'll explain in my next presentation, what is wrong with the existing social protection infrastructure and how we can revamp. Because if we are really looking to address poverty, we have to reimagine the opportunity for the society when we are talking about the poverty. So until unless we can't create that opportunity, and that's not about the investing through the government or investing through the donor community. It's all about creating a local infrastructure. And the local infrastructure, I explain how we can revamp those infrastructure. And planning commission is basically task 5 to develop an inclusive kind of model or framework that help to address not only the monetary poverty but also the sustainability of the multi-dimension poverty, plus creating such kind of environment where the shock could be absorbed. So we are working on both directions and coming up with a framework probably the next 3 to 4 months. We will present that framework to federal government to have an inclusive framework for the country as well. So we are working on that. But of course, the numbers matter, and the federal government as well as the donor community always deals on the hard problems rather than the quantitative part.
Great. Okay, and in addition to that, if you want to, Namasab, if you want to add to this, but also, since you have mentioned and there are students sitting here, you said that ADB, World Bank, they are coming up with some projects which do try to take into account the multi-dimensional nature of the poverty, right? So it'd be great if you could just share one example of a program here for our understanding that how this is being taken into account.
Dr. Saab has talked about this basic income support program, that allocations. I can share with you in the last 17 years, 6,000 billion rupees, 6,000 billion rupees we have allocated for the basic income support. And he said that social protection is not working. Neither the social protection nor the poverty alleviation programs are not working. Why these are not working? I can tell you. Globally, I can let you know there are countries who have used this social safety net and social protection programs, and they brought a big change to these programs in poverty reduction. Around 20 to 30% they have reduced for poverty. I can give example of Malawi. There are multiple countries. The problem here is in Pakistan is, I'm just sharing with you, I've been part of that World Bank program. You know what is the biggest challenge government of Pakistan is facing? 93% of these allocations are going into unconditional cash transfer. Unconditional cash transfer means this going to poorest of the poor people since 2018. 10.5 million families are getting this grant, unconditional cash grant. And you know, on the other hand, only 7% of this portfolio, this Benazir income support program portfolio, which is the largest poverty alleviation portfolio, 7% is going for unconditional cash transfer. There are three conditional cash transfer programs. Benazir income support program at the federal level, and one is in social protection authorities implementing here in Punjab province and one in Sindh province. So if you are a proportion of this conditional cap, if you want to alleviate poverty in a real sense, then for human development of the country, you have to have a balance between the unconditional cash transfer and the conditional cash. This is the answer of this question which Dr. Saab has given this. The second thing that Government of Punjab, I will give all credit to Government of Punjab comparing to other provinces that there is one program going on, area development program in DG Khanzagir. This is integrated program. They have started and has declared this one of the best program. I'm only talking about DG Khanzagir. DG Khanzagir has 3 or 4 districts. So IFAR has declared one of the best program globally. The reason is that they are, and this, as far as poverty alleviation is concerned, they have implemented integrated work. On the other side, you have asked about the this one World Bank and Asian Development Bank. One program is Punjab Social Protection Authority is implementing for the conditional cash transfer. They are facing challenges. In addition of that, there is a World Bank supported program land record. The first time in history of all this development support to Pakistan, a recent example is Misali Gaon. I hope some people have heard about this model village program government of Punjab has initiated. The beauty of this program is that they have considered the demand side, not only the supply side, that they have said that the infrastructure, wash infrastructure would be developed. Along with side this the wash infrastructure, water support, sanitation support, clean and green, this waste management, clean this Punjab, all these elements, infrastructure element, they have added 2 more elements, and one is they have connected this with nutrition, and the most important and the most critical, they have invested a lot in social behavior change. Because social behavior change, if we will not invest into behavior change of those local communities, if we will not invest on the institutional infrastructure at the local communities, because you know that this Misali Gaon program 4 years back, World Bank has supported, and now government has expanded this program at the provincial level, whole province level. They have said this year government has allocated 76 billion rupees over and above this $553 billion, this loan by the World Bank. So, and this current fiscal year, they are also doubling this amount. So we are so happy and we are working with the Punjab government. And you know on what area we are working? We are working on the soft side. because our soft side, when I say soft side, social behavior change, there has to be investment, community, local infrastructure, institutional setups, community-based organization, village-based organization, receiving mechanism. If you do not have a receiving mechanism at the local level, you cannot bring change by any of the program. So this software side, UNICEF has taken on board and government of Punjab, and we would be giving this support to Punjab government across 40 districts. Both on this, we would be using child-friendly approach, linking with social behavior change and the community this development at the local level. So this is important area of all these 4 or 5 programs I have talked about. This sustainable water and sanitation program of the World Bank, then social protection authority of the World Bank. This is they are also investing into that, but they are talking about again integrated programming, and we are proposing and we are suggesting that if we need to go beyond integration, there is a convergence approach has to be adopted by the government for more effective this. Thank you.
Right. So I also believe, this is something that I keep telling my students also that probably we have to begin somewhere. Child poverty should be the focus because it not only improves the condition of the a larger population at this point in time, but also can help improve the indicators in the longer run. So since we have some like 15 minutes left for this panel, I would really ask if any one of you have questions related to it, and then we can take a break. Yes, okay.
So, I had a good discussion this morning about poverty measurement, poverty development, indicators. What is bothering me that we have already success stories of poverty can be reduced massively. And China as an example. What is my feeling is that we have a structural problem of poverty. We cannot eradicate poverty with procedural matters like easy income support or so we need to. My suggestion is that a all-UN system get together and respond to the government. We should go for local government structures, strengthen the local government, empower the local government, empower the communities. They will take care of their issues. This is structural problem. It's not an instrumental problem, it's a structural problem. My argument has been that we should really focus on the support from the funding side as well as the policy side. First of all, the government needs, like Misali government, they should go for local government structures. That if you establish local government structures, strengthen them, the whole debate of more provinces, more investment, more wastage of resources will go away. All the basic infrastructure programs should go locally. They will discuss and decide what are the important things. Whether it's food, nutrition, infrastructure, education, health, the village council will decide. I think my proposal will be should all work for local government.
We had Emma Lipan here earlier, and that's what I think is very important. So question, and then we'll take questions, and then we'll go to the answers. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Vajal from LSE. I have basically 2 questions. The first is regarding the BIS. You have mentioned the amount that has been allocated of 720 billion. So I would kind of cite a research paper that was done by the professors at NUMS and was published in Journal of Development Economics, which shows that even though the conditional cash transfer is a bigger impact, but they showed that the impact is much larger when we move towards the asset-based microfinance. And I would, ask Dr. Nasir because he has a paper on that same topic as well. Second thing is that you talked about, the kind of expenditure that is devoted to the health and education. So what do you think, that is it a matter of the amount of expenditure or the way the expenditure is spent? Because as far as I would quote the education sector, because we spend 2% of the GDP and 2% of the current expenditure is the international standard. But we know that 78% of the people, 78% of the students in class 5 can't solve the question of mathematics of grade 2. So what do you think? Thank you.
There is one question here. I think
Assalamualaikum. I have a question that what is meant by conditional teenage income support program? Assalamualaikum. So my question is related to one of your points that you said earlier. And that was you said that we are investing so much money into the education sectors over the years. But there's also one thing that I think that needs to be addressed right here, and that is that despite ourselves investing so much money into the education sectors, introducing new degrees, new programs, then why is that people are still opting to go for entrepreneurship, starting their own startups, businesses, and therefore neglecting college studies or university studies despite ourselves investing so much money? Why do you think that is the case?
one last question and then the answer. Where is my opinion?
Okay, so if we see Pakistan's overall GDP and resource base, do you think child poverty is more a problem of distribution and access than absolute scarcity? Has there been any analysis conducted to whether child poverty can be due to governance, public resource allocation, and institutional policy?
Right. Okay. So I think I will first get answers to these questions, and I'll try to so bracket a few questions which are similar. So maybe begin with Dr. Nantar, since you've been working on and you're looking closely at the bill pen data. So there's this one very important question and observation which says that asset-based transfers, they're more important as compared to the conditional or unconditional cash transfers. What does evidence tell us about it?
Yeah, thank you, Exactly. Well, like a policy question, are we looking for a wider effect or a larger effect? This defines what kind of investment we are ready. So the base, as you mentioned, around more than 10 million beneficiaries, it has a wider impact in terms of, you can call it as a either impact, either social impact, either economic, we can quantify on that. But if you look at the asset transfer program, scalability is the key challenge behind it. I'll explain these things when I give the detailed presentation on. I try to compare three different programs where the BASP is one program and another program is health insurance. When I try to make a comparison of all these and come up with a synthesis, what are the R learning? One question is what is conditional cash transfer program? It's simply if you have a kid in your family and the stipend provided by the government is linked with the enrollment of that kid in the school. Basically, this is a kind of condition imposed by the government. You can only be eligible for any kind of social protection program if your kid goes to school. So this is a kind of a conditional cash transfer program. Whereas the unconditional means you don't need to be in the school, but if your score is below any threshold that's defined by the government, any household fall below that threshold would be eligible for the unconditional cash transfer program. And the best usage is the classical example of unconditional cash transfer program and the Sila Kali program that they have a classical example of conditional cash transfer.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the other question actually, which is related to, and in fact, this comment also that what we're facing in Pakistan regarding poverty eradication is actually a structural issue, and we need local governments. Right? They can help us make more what you were referring to as a pragmatic approach also, right? So this is something that I want you to comment on. And then also another thing that amount is not a problem, it is the way this is being spent, say on education or poverty eradication, that's a big of a problem. So I think these are two interlinked, that's why I
Thank you very much. Dr. Saab has rightly pointed out that structural poverty, through these projects and programs, we won't be able to address poverty issue. We need local governments. I 100% agree to Dr. Saab's suggestion. But you know that in Punjab, we have this local body elections based on the direction of the legislation. We have been talking about this local body elections since last many years, almost a decade. But whenever we get a ruling of a Supreme Court, we have this elections, local body elections in Punjab. So this is one thing. Otherwise, we would have this local body representative at the local level. They are from the local area. They know the problem. They have the wisdom what kind of projects and programs they need, number one, and they would be directly a participant of the from planning phase to implementation and implementation phase to repair and maintenance. That's the biggest challenge we have been facing. As I said, now we don't need any infrastructure support. We don't need to invest in all this social sector infrastructure. We have more than enough infrastructure. Availability is there, infrastructure's availability is there, usability is the biggest challenge. Because you know that in primary schools or in lower secondary and secondary schools, we are saying we need more buildings there. We don't need for because these buildings and the primary healthcare buildings are underutilized. This is one thing. Another thing, very interesting. I hope you are aware, there are two major sectors of the economy, health, education, and nutrition. 40% of this infrastructure has gone to private sector. I hope you are aware, everyone is aware. We started with pure public. 60 years we spent funds on the pure public, and then in last 15 years, we spent money, all this social sector to public-private mode, and now 40% of health and education infrastructure is the private sector. So some people ask from me that in this current multiple indicator, this is outcome-based survey, so there is a change. I'm not saying a significant change. There is an improvement in health indicators, education indicators, except the out-of-school children. I'm not talking about out-of-school children is the biggest problem. Why we are facing this problem? 26 million children are outside. Globally, we are talking about this middle income. Punjab is a middle income country. We can compare as far as digitization is concerned, as far as artificial intelligence is concerned, we can compare Punjab with a middle income country. But on the other hand, out of school children, 9.6 million children are out of school. Let me share with you one more thing. We have gone deep and deep and deep into this data set. Lahore is a provincial capital, is the second largest hotspot as far as out of school children are concerned. So the political leadership has to see what's going on. That 9.6 million children are out of school and policymakers are saying, when I ask from the policymakers, people who are sitting in the government, if these administrative secretary, I said that this is the issue, and you are saying that we need more money for infrastructure, this school infrastructure. So this is one thing that we need to decide once that private sector is the ultimate solution. Because you know that each individual basic health unit, one doctor and one lady doctor is running that whole show at a rural area. So we know, I can give you one example of these two programs. People's program of primary healthcare. People's program of primary healthcare, which I was talking about 10 years back, 15 years back, this program was initiated in 14 districts of Punjab. And then government of Pakistan has replicated this people's program for primary healthcare across the board, all 4 provinces. But suddenly, what happened? The political regime in 2010 said this public-private partnership approach is not good. Please leave this. Now we would be diverting towards the private sector approach. So we have to focus on our policy choices. This is an important area that whether we need this single sector approach, integrated approach, or the collective approach. This is one thing. Number two, this private sector, public-private partnership, and the pure public. So these are the policy choices. If government will adopt these policy choices, things would be much better. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. This gives us a bit of an idea about the nature of poverty and the questions around it, which are not just only ethical, political, they're also related to economics. So again, it tells us that there are many dimensions that we need to look at. And I remember when Noman Saab shared his data about Lahore and the educational inequalities, I thought this is very scandalous that this is happening in Lahore, but we celebrated a good Western families here. We also need to question how do we and what do we understand about poverty? How do we view it? What is development for us? Is it merely infrastructure, or is it actually human development? And that's the discussion that we now need to center also, right? Thank you so much for your patience. And so, okay, so I was just concluding it, but
I just wanted to clarify. School children has become a very popular subject. But every day, children are not going to school. Not because the parents don't want to, not because the parents want incentives, because there's no structural arrangement for them to go to school. There's no school in the vicinity. They cannot travel 10 to 20 kilometers. School building is available. It is available, but they cannot travel. One small decision what the transportation system to that. One solution. Other solution, find out structural arrangement individually to provide school. But for the regular school employment, that is not our school children. Our school children require special arrangement. They are not the level of teaching ABC. They are already 8, they're 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. They have special education. Not go to private school. Yes, I think this is our structural problem.
Yes, these are structural problems and therefore very political also, right? And we cannot look at these problems apolitically. So you can continue these discussions during this 1 hour break that we have. You resume at 3. Please be here on time. There is a very interesting panel lined up after this, which will be related to the discussion that we had here, social section. What is the context and what are the new approaches that are being talked about globally? Grateful to each one of you for your time so far. And we see you all at 3. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Everyone please be seated. I would like to call Dr. Nizam on stage to hand over the shields and the bags to the panelists. Questions? Please be attentive and take the guests from Career College, LSC, and any other university sitting over here to LT5. And the panelists and the speakers are requested to stay here. We will be assisting you to the lunchroom soon. Bye.
अच्छा, अब इसके बाद में क्या सीन है हम लोग?
The students from LSC clubs, can you please gather around the stage area? And any other university who are sitting over here, they're gone. Some of them are gone. Yeah, the teachers are gone.
अच्छा, क्या रह गया? ये भी काट दो एकदम। ये पेन है ना यहाँ पे चीज ले चलेगा नहीं यार।
मैंने लिखा है अपील को बुलाओ कि हालांकि बच्चों की तरह बताएंगे और सही है कि नहीं।
बुलाओ। अच्छा, तो लोग क्वेश्चन करेंगे।
टाइम उसका भी बुलाए।
ये कॉल और
एक मिनट।
बंद